I'm coming back in.
Man, oh man, back at it again. We got another banger for y'all. It's been a little minute, man. But we back. We gonna be consistent again. We've been slacking, but we back. And like I said, man, we got a banger for y'all. As you can see, remaking my NBA GOAT pyramid with the one and only
Jimmy.
Come on, man, JxmyHighroller. But
Jimmy,
let's get into it, man. Yo, what it do? It's your boys, Juice and Lou. We back here with another banger for y'all. So without further ado, let's get into it.
About 3 years ago, I released my GOAT pyramid, featuring 30 of what I believe to be the greatest NBA players of all time. And it's okay, but it could use some work. So today, we're going to be updating the NBA GOAT pyramid. Today's video is brought to you by SeatGeek. A new NBA season is upon us. Just check tickets there. And Hakeem Olajuwon. The dead giveaway was LeBron being on tier 3. Also, current day Steph on tier 4 was a massive red flag. And a pretty solid player by the name of Hakeem Olajuwon was nowhere to be found on this pyramid at all. So, as cool as it would be to have Shaq share some content from the channel, this NBA GOAT pyramid is from someone else. But it did get me thinking. With all of the events that have taken place over the last 4 NBA seasons, I think it's time we update our GOAT pyramid. So here's the pyramid I made 3 years ago, May 23rd, 2019 to be exact. Which means since this video was released, 4 new teams have been crowned champions, 4 MVPs have been awarded, and there has been 3.5 seasons worth of NBA context to consider for our new pyramid. Now I want to keep this new pyramid at 30 players like our original one. So if I add any players, I unfortunately have to take players off as well.
30 players across 5.
And just like with my original GOAT pyramid, there are a few factors I'm going to be considering throughout this process. A player's peak, which I value more than longevity, their accomplishments and hardware, their skill and ability, and even the era that they played in. And of course, just like with my original GOAT pyramid, these selections are all based on my personal opinion. So with that out of the way, let's make some changes to this pyramid. So, first things first, I have to make one massive adjustment to the top of this pyramid. Some may agree with it, some may not. But after winning his 4th championship and 4th Finals MVP while climbing every all-time leaderboard over the last 4 seasons, LeBron James has earned a spot in Tier 1. Because at this point, the all-time discussion has virtually become Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and then everyone else.
You agree with that?
I ain't gonna lie. If Bron in there, gonna have to move this guy right here too. If I'm being honest,
I mean if that's the criteria, all of Tier 2 needs to be in Tier 1.
No.
Really?
I already, you know how I feel about Kareem. I think Kareem's a little overrated. I mean,
well, at least Magic and Kobe then.
Magic, there's an argument because he probably had one of the greatest rookie seasons ever, winning a championship in place for this guy, actually. So, I don't know, but I just feel like, Kobe, his era, I mean, he averaged what? He averaged 37 in a really tough era as well. I mean, Jordan did too. Yeah. That's why he's Tier 1, but Jordan obviously 6 for 6 and other accolades he has, probably the greatest peak ever. But I feel like Kobe's peak was also good from 2000 to 2010. That's a good 10-year period for him. So I think Kobe should be up there as well. At least behind Bron.
I still have MJ as the GOAT, but the gap between MJ and LeBron feels smaller than the gap between LeBron and whoever comes next. So I feel this change was necessary and well earned. But that leaves us with 3 players on Tier 2. And that just looks weird. So when considering peaks and accolades and impact on the game and every other factor I can conjure up, I've decided to move Bill Russell and Larry Bird up to Tier 2. In our original pyramid, I had Magic on tier 2 and Bird on tier 3. But with LeBron moving up, this gives room for Bird and Magic to be on the same tier, as they should be. And Bill Russell, 11 rings, greatest defensive player of all time, there's not much to be said here. Now there's two players in particular who...
Greatest defensive player of all time.
Shit, if Bill Russell's in tier 2, Shaq gotta be in tier 2, bro. Because if we're talking era, like I get you got 11 rings. But you gotta include the era too. Like Shaq gotta be tier 2, man.
Shaq had a good run.
I don't know, man.
Shaq was good from the 90s to like the early 2000s. Started fading once he got to Miami a little bit, but I mean, he still got 4 rings. Or 4, yeah. 4. But, I mean, it's not a bad argument. I like him on tier 4. I like Shaq on tier 4. Honestly, I think Bill should be back on tier 3, not 4. I think he should be on tier 3 as well. But I like moving Bird up, though.
Bird, for sure. Bill,
who have solidified their legacies over the last 4 seasons and have earned spots on tier 3 with Shaq, Hakeem, Duncan, and Wilt. Those players are, of course, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. Since 2019, Steph has proven, without a shadow of a doubt, that he's the greatest shooter of all time. And after winning his 4th championship and first Finals MVP last season, he's made the jump into Tier 3. Steph's brilliance and consistency season after season has extended his prime past where I think most fans would have ever considered. Now in his 13th season, at 34 years old, he's not only one of the best players in the league, he's putting together arguably the best season of his historic career. And the same could be said for Kevin Durant. He's got all the hardware, a league MVP, 2 championships, and 2 finals MVPs. But what has bumped Durant from tier 4 into tier 3 is his relentless consistency as a generational talent. Since 2019, he's made 2 more All-NBA teams, while averaging 29, 7, and 6. And this has earned him the jump from tier 4 to tier 3. And that brings us to tier 4, which has some pretty major changes to it. And our first change comes with John Stockton, who gets demoted into tier 5, which puts him at about the 5th or 6th greatest point guard of all time, behind Magic, Steph, Oscar, and Isaiah. Scottie Pippen also got demoted to tier 5. I made this decision because despite Scottie's critical role throughout the Bulls dynasty, his talents as an individual player just don't warrant him a spot amongst players like Oscar Robertson, Karl Malone, and Julius Erving. And unfortunately, Dwayne Wade and Isaiah Thomas get demoted into tier 5.
Nah, bro. You lost me.
I ain't gonna lie. D-Wade should not be tier 4.
I
ain't gonna lie.
He should be tier 4?
No.
Why?
I gotta see who he adds, though. This is gonna be interesting.
No,
but
bro.
I was looking at it funny. I was like, yo, why is D-Wade tier 4?
Why is he not tier 4?
Bro, I'm pretty sure he has an MVP. Julius is iffy, but he was a legend. They both have rings, so him and Wade both have rings, so I see why they're so. Honestly, they could probably both move down. I think Isaiah Thomas should be back here though. That he set a different trend for his era. I mean, he was bullying. He was the leader of the Bad Boys Pistons. They got 2 rings out of him. I think he should be tier 4. Scottie, I understand he was the 2nd best player, but I mean his numbers obviously aren't as good as a lot of these Hall of Famers who were only the first option on their team and never really won a lot. But he still has 6 rings. I mean, he helped Jordan. I mean, he's a winner at the end of the day in a good era, like we brought up. So
that is.
I honestly feel like Isaiah Thomas should be back. That's kind of crazy to me. But D Wade, I understand why he's down there. No offense, Jews. I mean,
man,
as well. All-time great players. But being in tier 4 means a player is, at worst, a top 21 player of all time. And I just don't consider Wade or Isaiah to be of that caliber. But I would consider them both to be top 30 players of all time, with similar relatively short but brilliant peaks and playoff heroics throughout their careers. And with these changes, tier 4 becomes a barren wasteland with only 3 players. So we've got some promoting to do, starting with Jerry West, 12 All-NBA.
West over Isaiah Thomas is kind of crazy.
Jerry West over Wade is crazy. Like, what are we talking about? You know what? It's his opinion. It's his opinion. So if he's the logo, that means he should be the greatest of all time.
He went to 12 finals to be the greatest. He just didn't win them all. He could probably be up there with Bill if he won some more. Shoot, this is what it's looking like. Probably be up there with Bill if he won some.
I gotta remember, this is a personal list. So I gotta remember. This is a personal list. Okay.
8 teams, finals MVP, and 5 all-defensive team selections with career averages of 27, 6, and 5 a game. The only other players in NBA history to achieve these career averages are LeBron James and Kevin Durant. So the logo gets the bump into Tier 4. My next promotion goes to Moses Malone. 3-time league MVP, a finals MVP, and one of the greatest rebounders the game has ever seen. Honestly, he should have never been in Tier 5 to begin with, so let's put him where he truly belongs. And my last pair of promotions goes to Dirk Nowitzki and Kevin Garnett. The individual dominance of both KG and Dirk that spanned over 2 decades is matched by only a handful of all time.
The other day, actually. It was about Dirk's final run, and people were comparing it actually to AD's bubble run.
Oh my god.
When AD, no, the numbers were crazy similar though. Like they both went 16-5 in the playoffs. They both got a ring. AD, I think they both averaged 28 or 29 points. Obviously, AD had more blocks, more steals, better defensive player, whatever. They both shot 55% from the field. The same amount of free throw percentage. I can't remember the free throw percentage, but it was like crazy similar stats. So that had me thinking a little bit. Maybe Dirk's run wasn't
time greats, but if not their sustained excellence over the course of 21 seasons, it was their massive peaks that earned them a spot in Tier 4. 2 of the most skilled, versatile, and imposing big men the game has ever seen. Which leaves us with Tier 5 and some tough decisions to make. There are only 2 players that made my original GOAT pyramid that did not make the cut in my new pyramid. And those players are Bob Pettit and Allen Iverson. But with all these adjustments, there are now 2 spots open for 2 new players. Of all the players who missed the cut the first time around, the players who I considered for my new pyramid were Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, James Harden, Chris Paul, and Kawhi Leonard. Of all the active players in the NBA, aside from LeBron, Steph, and Durant, these are the only players who even have a shot at making the pyramid. And since my original pyramid 3.5 years ago, Nikola Jokic has made 4 All-NBA teams, 3 of them being first-team selections. He's won back-to-back MVPs, he's led the Nuggets to the conference finals, and he's put up 2 of the most historically efficient and productive seasons in league history. It's only a matter of time before Jokic joins the GOAT pyramid. But at the moment, it's just a bit too soon. Now for the case of James Harden, I had to sit and really think about his potential addition to the pyramid. Harden had one of the highest offensive peaks in league history, averaging 31, 8, and 6 a game over the course of 6 seasons. He's won an MVP, he's made 7 All-NBA teams, and he's just one of 7 players in NBA history to win a scoring title and an assist title. But where James Harden falls short compared to other players on the pyramid is his performance in the playoffs. He just hasn't broke through on the biggest stage, and the heliocentric offense that allowed him to put up such unbelievable stat lines became a weak point to his teams in the postseason. So for now, James Harden does not crack the GOAT pyramid. The next player I considered was Chris Paul, one of the most complete point guards in recent years. And despite his lack of playoff success, he has managed to completely transform every team he's been a part of. CP3 is a tricky one, because as I touched on before, if you compare Chris Paul to John Stockton, who is in Tier 5 on my pyramid, their careers are almost identical. And after CP3's first trip to the finals last season, their overall numbers and accomplishments only become more and more similar with time. Chris Paul had a higher peak, but Stockton's record-breaking ability to generate offense for nearly 2 decades, while being a lockdown perimeter defender, gives him a razor-thin edge over CP3, in my opinion. So for now, Chris Paul doesn't quite crack Tier 5, which leaves us with the 2 new additions to my GOAT pyramid, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard. Now, since my original pyramid, which was released just before the end of the 2019 season, Giannis has went from a great, young, ascending player to a certified all-time great in just 3.
So, remember, AI and Bob Pettit got dropped for Giannis and Kawhi. So Giannis over.
But
AI?
Giannis, I can understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Giannis, I can understand.
Kawhi over AI.
That's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets tough. Because it's like the best ability is availability.
Shut up. I do not want to hear that.
Yeah.
I do not want to hear that right now. It don't
But-
matter.
but-
Kawhi's best season versus Allen Iverson's best season.
But Kawhi does have 2 Finals MVPs. There's 2 rings.
2 different teams.
2 different teams. DPOY. Yeah, I'd give them the edge. It's not by far. But I'd give them the edge.
3.5 years, Giannis won a championship, 2 MVPs, a Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, 4 All-NBA first teams, 4 All-Defensive first teams, and an All-Star Game MVP, while averaging 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. That's a pretty solid 3.5-year stretch for the big man. So I had to add Giannis to the pyramid, and I'm going to put him comfortably in Tier 4. And with our second and final addition, Kawhi Leonard is added to Tier 5. My original pyramid was created 3 weeks before Kawhi won his second championship and second Finals MVP, which led to his greatness stock skyrocketing. Now, Kawhi is a tough player to rank among any all-time scenario, because when he's playing, he's one of the greatest players to ever lace up. But over the last few seasons, he just hasn't laced up a whole lot. But it's impossible to look past his 2 Finals MVPs and his run as the best two-way player in the NBA. So Kawhi gets added to the pyramid, but just barely, sneaking into Tier 5. And there it is, my updated NBA GOAT pyramid. And I want to point out a few interesting things that I noticed throughout the process of making this. If we break down the pyramid by position, there are 6 point guards, 3 shooting guards, 8 small forwards, 6 power forwards, and 7 centers featured on the pyramid. I initially thought centers would have the largest presence here, with big men running the league for nearly 6 decades, but turns out a well-rounded, versatile wing has been the ideal archetype for a potential NBA great. If we break the GOAT pyramid down by the decade that each player was drafted in, then we'll find that among all players who made it onto the pyramid, 4 of them were drafted in the 50s, 3 were drafted in the 60s, 2 were drafted in the 70s, a whopping 10 players were drafted in the 80s, 5 in the 90s, 4 in the 2000s, and 2 in the 2010s. And since most players peak in the decade after they were drafted, it could be said that the 90s were the best era for NBA basketball, or at least the era that featured the most all-time great talent. Giannis is the youngest player featured on this pyramid at just 28 years old, completely bypassing Tier 5 altogether and landing on Tier 4 after just 9 seasons in the NBA. This puts Giannis somewhere between the 15th and 20th best player all time. Giannis's ascent amongst the greatest players of all time was pretty quick, but we've seen a rapid climb to basketball royalty like this before. Back in 1996, the NBA announced the 50 greatest NBA players to commemorate the league's 50th anniversary. And despite some backlash on the selection, a 24-year-old Shaquille O'Neal was selected as a top 50 player all time after just 4 seasons in the NBA. The second youngest player that was selected for that exclusive Greatest 50 club was Scottie Pippen, who was 31. Back in 2009, sports writer and analyst Bill Simmons released his original basketball pyramid that featured 96 players. At the time, LeBron James was just 24 years old in his 6th NBA season. He hadn't won a league MVP yet, he had only made 1 trip to the finals at that point, and he just hit his peak. But a young LeBron not only made Bill's GOAT basketball pyramid, he was already so transcendently good that Simmons selected him as the 20th greatest player in NBA history. And after the last half-decade Giannis has put together, he has slingshotted himself onto the same trajectory. Now I have to mention the handful of players that just narrowly missed the cut. Those players were Steve Nash, Patrick Ewing, Allen Iverson, Jason Kidd, Bob Pettit, Bob Cousy, James Harden, Chris Paul, Nikola Jokic, and George Mikan. All great players, but when the spots are limited to just 30, the criteria to make the GOAT pyramid is a hefty one. I imagine if we redo this pyramid again in 5 years, we'll see Jokic on here, we might see Luka Doncic on here, or possibly James Harden and Chris Paul. But for now, this is my new, and I think improved, NBA GOAT pyramid. Let me know what you think. Which players...
Like I said, man, I got Kobe 1.
Agreed.
I got IT in 4. Probably swapping with Dr. J. Yeah, I would probably do that swap. This guy, bro. Okay, I guess, bro. I guess.
Jared West, man.
I guess.
Jeez.
Is this? Yeah, that's Elgin Baylor. I don't know. I think that's Havlicek. I don't know though. I'm not 100% sure.
That may be Havlicek. Because Kuzi wasn't on there. So
everything else, it's not bad. I really feel like it should be tier 4 Isaiah Thomas. Everything else is up in the air. Maybe Bill Russell a little high, but I understand why.
Yeah.
I understand what he did for the game, even though the air was weak. But
yeah, I guess, man. But hey, that's gonna wrap up this video. Let us know what you guys think about this pyramid. And what changes would you make? Where's your tiers? I mean, I know some of y'all may put Larry Bird tier 1, but you know. But speaking of Larry Bird, got some Larry Bird content coming for y'all, man. You know,
I've been waiting, fiending.
I've been waiting for that, man. And we gonna give it to y'all. But until then, it's your boys Juice and Lou, and we out of here. Peace.